Good morning and welcome to Tina's Crafty Ink Spot. Today's tutorial, you know me, I love anything that has to do with technique. So we're going to do an old technique. It's been around, can't even tell you how long. I started doing it several years ago and I hadn't done it in a while, and I was flipping through my technique ring and thought, oh, I want to do that because it's really fun during the holidays. Iris folding is basically using ribbon, uh, paper, or fabric and layering it in strips on a with your die cut or your window behind it. And they refer to it as iris because of like the camera iris, like the lens of a camera where it goes in and out. That's where the name kind of comes from. Today's card, I simply did a maple leaf and I used the frosted floral designer series paper. I love this. It's all of it's got a really nice, I don't know if you can see it through here. It's got a frosted shimmer to it. So by mixing it, it gave my project a nice little shimmer and shine. Because, you know, if it doesn't shine, no, come on. Gotta bling it. I've done some others. This one, not really happy with, but I didn't like the way the colors came out. And I've done some others. This one is a simple ornament, and instead of paper, I used ribbon. I've done several others where I've used some old DSP you have, do a Christmas tree. It's a good way to use up some old designer series paper. This one I've done with glitter paper. This one was really fun. The little Santa had his actual ribbon, and then I took some cotton and kind of glued it down on there. This ornament, I was trying without folding your paper, and you'll see what I mean by that as we go on. But it was kind of just to show. I couldn't find the original card. I just had the image. It kind of goes to show that the reasons why they have you fold your paper for this technique. In in the description of this video will be a link to my blog where I'm going to include not only a written PDF tutorial, I also found on, I assume Pinterest or somewhere, some iris templates that are not as complex as the normal ones you see. Some of the ones you see, they use numbering, and you have to keep track of all your numbers, and it can be intimidating when actually the technique itself is really simple. And so the templates I'm including on the link you'll see are 3 different templates um, that use color coding instead of number coding. And what I mean by number coding is, see where you have all these numbers? These are the templates. You can find these online. You can find them on Pinterest. People, there's a ton of them out there. All different designs, people, and they coordinate with a pattern number so that you know which number goes to what color. And that can be intimidating because you're going back and forth looking at numbers. As we move on through this tutorial, you'll see what I mean, to where the way I'm doing it with color coding, this isn't intimidating. But if you're just learning how to do iris folding, the color coding is going to be great for you, and it'll make things like this look uh, not so intimidating. It's rather simple. It's just a matter of keeping track of your colors. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to jump into it. We're going to do a maple leaf. I'm not going to do the frosted florals. I'm almost out of that, as by the way. But just so I can show you the technique and how you do this. And now this is a thick technique, so you'll need to pop up whatever image or with the dimensionals so that it because you'll see it's going to be thick behind your card. I mean, it's normal with the way the card opens, and it's not really that heavy. Depends on what you use. If you're using a thick fabric or a really thick cardstock, yeah, it can get pretty thick. But let's dive into it. And now these patterns that you get, I'm simply doing a maple leaf. And I just cut it out from the detailed leaves that comes in the Falling for Leaves bundle. It's in the 2018 holiday catalog right now. Oh, pardon me. You can use any die cut you want for your image. If you have a Cricut or what's the other one, a Silhouette, you're endless on what kind of um, images you can use. You can scan them, put them in there. So all I did is I took a piece of Very Vanilla, and it measures 3.5 by 3.5, and I die cut my leaf. They call this your image window. Okay, so this is my front side. This is the back side. And then what I did on the description below, I have a link to my blog that'll have these templates. Now, I found these years ago when I was first learning it, and I end up still using them for everything because they'll adapt to whatever you need. Now, the images, when you print them off my page, are going to probably be in 6 by 6 inch format. And all you need to do is when you print it, just change your printer settings to 50% or 75%, depending on what size image you're using. This great big image, if you were doing a wall print or something like that, would be very useful. But all I did is shrink it down so that you want your image so it fits inside of your template, and you can move it, any direction you want depending on how you want your paper or ribbon to lie. That will make sense more in a second. Now these templates, what I do, you can use them just like this. This is just plain copy paper. But what I do is I Poor Man laminate it. Yes, it's Poor Man laminate. Packing tape. No sense wasting good laminate. I do have a laminating machine, but this is just as easy. And all I do, take your packing tape, go in there. I probably didn't need to share this, but one of my students asked me what Poor Man laminating is. I use it on business cards. I do it all the time. Oops, but don't tape it to your paper. I'm going to move this paper a second. So you have your tape on one side, and tape. The other good thing about doing this is when you're doing your image, it helps your image from sticking to your template, depending on what you're using to adhere your strips. So here's our Poor Man laminate. Just trim it off. I'm going to run it through my paper trimmer. Anyway, you end up with this, and it's just lightly laminated. You can see this one's well used. I just keep it on the side. So what you'll do, we'll just jump right in, is place your template, whatever it may be, how you want it on here. You can even offset what they call the iris eye, or I just call it the eye. And even if you wanted it offset or whatever, then you would have to adjust the size of your template because you need these to show. But I kind of want I think I just want a little bit of my stem there. And then what I do is I take painter's tape. The difference between regular masking tape and painter's tape is that painter's tape is removable. Painters, they call it that because painters use it to mask trim, and when they peel it off, it won't peel the paint of the trim. So I just take a little bit of this. Make sure that your image is completely in there. I just, oops, and I've already messed up. This is my front side of my die. I don't know if you can see the little increase where your die was laying. Basically, on this technique, you're working from the back side. So I want to flip this over so that my front side is down against my template. And then decide how I want my, and then just take a little bit of your painter's tape just to keep your template from moving while you're doing your work. You don't need a lot. And since this is the back side of your image, even if you have tape damage on the back side of it, it's not going to show on your project because it's going to be flipped over, if that makes sense. So there we go. Got our piece secure. And then I decided I wanted to use kind of more of a fall leaf color. So what I did is I grabbed my wood textures pack. And there's some really neat wood colors in here. And since I know each one, so when you have your templates, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. This template, the square, has 4 colors. So for each color, you need a different color of paper, ribbon, or whatever. You can do it all the same if you want to. I mean, it looks fine, but the idea of an iris is the multi-coloring that kind of just adds the character to it. So you can do all solid like I did on the Santa hat. I just made it all one color. So it's kind of your own preference, and as you play with it, you'll find what colors go better. But what I like to do is I'll take like a light color and then maybe one that's a little busier, like if you were doing a solid cardstock, and then maybe one with some flowers on it, and then maybe another solid, and then another one with some character to it. And then what you do is you take, now depending on how big your image is how much paper you'll use. And also depending, if you're using a very large template like this one here, then you're going to have to take into consideration your widest areas of paper. So on this one, as you'll see in the tutorial with the PDF on my website, I'm cutting 1-inch strips on the one I'm doing here. If you're doing a larger image, obviously you're going to have to adapt your strips to the size, your largest areas here. So if this is, I'd say that's about, that looks about 1 inch. So if your widest area is 1 inch, then you're probably going to have to cut a 2-inch strip of paper or cloth or ribbon, or have a 2-inch ribbon. When you do this with ribbon on this size, a 1-inch ribbon will work fine. So we're just going to take and cut a few strips of this, and I'm just going to do 1-inch strips. Probably just going to cut a few of them so I have plenty. Let's do 3 of each. See if that gets us through it. So there's 3 of that one. Let me get all these other steps there now. I'll set that aside. Let's do 3 of this one. I really kind of like the lighter, so I'm going to go that way. And we got one more. Okay, so we got our starters. Pardon me. So now, what I do, remember I showed you the templates that have the numbers. And normally what you would have to do with those number ones is write down on the template which one goes to which number, and it can be a little bit tedious. So what I'm going to do is I kind of pick which color I think I want. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go with this one for my stem area. And then I want one that has some character, one without character, and one with character. And then, move that out of your way. And then what I do, just to make sure I stay on track, is I know this one is going to be my blue. So I simply write blue and pink. And let's call that lime. And then we'll call this one green. So what that'll do is just keep me in track on what I'm doing there. Now, before you can start your image, you have to take your little sheets, and you'll see a lot of people will fold them directly in half. I don't. I fold mine about 3/4 of the way. And the only reason I do that is, one, it's going to give me a little bit wider surface in case I miscalculated. And 2, you'll find that this is going to get really thick by the time you layer. And by being off just a little bit, it seems to not be as thick. And normally what I do, you can leave it just like this. Let me grab my bone folder. You can leave it without gluing it. Just make sure it's got a nice crisp edge. If you're doing this with cloth or fabric, I would say probably iron it. But what I do, just for a little added to make sure my line stays crisp, take a little bit of double-sided tape, run it on the inside of it, and fold it back up. Then I have my strip. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do one of each strip, and then I'll get started on this so you see the process. And I'm keeping them in order by their little spaces, their little colors. Especially when you have double-sided DSP, because this could get confused pretty easy. Once you fold it, though, probably keep track of it. But you really ought to try this technique with ribbons, especially during the holidays. Do a simple round one and turn it into a ornament. Oh, so pretty. So there's 3 different templates, like I said, on the blog post. you can adapt those templates to whatever shapes you want. This one is my square template. It has 4 colors. There's a hexagon template, and there's I just lost the name, a triangle template, which you could use, for a Christmas tree or whatever. But they all adapt to however you want the design to look, and you just adapt them that way. So we've got one of each. We're going to get started because I'm impatient. I want to play. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably try to zoom you in here a little bit so you have a little bit better view of what we're doing here. So you see on the template these little lines. That's actually your guide. That's what you're going to be following. And you're just going to rotate. So I know blue is my beginning. So here's our folded side. So we want our folded side up. And you want your crisp folded edge and the longer side. And you're going to line it up. Let's see if it'll show a little better. You're going to line it up with your first line, like that. Now, people do this several ways. You can either put your paper down, trim it, and put cellophane masking tape on it. You can use glue dots, whatever you need to keep your paper down. But what you do need to know is you do not want to glue or tape directly onto the template. So basically, you're attaching your paper on all sides around. That'll make more sense here in a minute. So all I do is I just take my little glue and put a couple, you need like microscope dots, because I like this multi-purpose mono glue because it does glue or dry quickly and tends to be nice and tacky. So I'm going to line up and make sure I go across the template on my line. And you can let this dry, but normally I just trim. And then I move that one back to my blue. So you have your first one. Now you're going to rotate. I go around it clockwise. So whatever direction that you start is the one you're going to keep going. So we're going to go to our pink strip, which is on our pink here. And we want to take, see, we have our folded edge is going to go toward the inside. And our first line is a real small one right here. So since I know that's just a really tiny one, I'm just going to trim off a little piece. Put my little glue there. Your base layer, you kind of really want to make sure that it's adhered. Now it's okay if it goes off the edge, because at the very end is when you're going to trim up anything hanging over. So we put this one back at our pink, and we're going to go to, I'll come out a little bit for you. So now we're going to go, we've done our pink, rotate again. We've got our folded edge on the inside. Our first line of the lime is right there. So I just put a couple little tiny dots. This works with glue dots too. I'm just impatient about getting my glue dots. And this is actually probably easier for me. So we're going to line up that line. Make sure it goes all the way across our template opening. Glue it down, move this back to our lime pile. Now we're going to move on to our green. Once you get this first layer going, it starts to make more sense. So we're going to go to our very first line there. Put down our Now we put this back in our green pile. Now you start all over. Go back over to your blue pile. Grab your blue one, because your same color is going to go on each one. So we're going to take our folded side. Now when you're doing your second layer and your third and your fourth, you can put a dab of glue right here on this one because it's going to be overlapping it. And a little bit on each side there. Don't want a lot. Don't need a lot. I'm just going to trim this off because I kind of know how wide that is. And then I'm just going to line it up with my line and lay it down. See, if you don't tack down your folds, you'll find that these are flopping up. A lot of people are really good at doing it. I just think it's easier to. So now we're going to go to our pinks. Our pink was this one. And now see, now this one, the line goes all the way over here. So we're just going to do around our edge. And we know we can tack it right here. And we know we need to go all the way off over here. So we're going to line it up. Put that back in our pink pile. Now we're going to green again. See, it's starting to make sense. So I'll do this, and then I'll do this one layer, and then I'll speed up the video for you so you can see when we get to the closer to the end. And the fun part about this is when you're looking at it from this side, it makes absolutely no sense. But when you flip it over, it's really pretty. There's my lime. And we're moving to our green pile. When you do the number templates, and you'll see them, they're all over Pinterest, wherever you want to look. Just on Pinterest, just type in iris folding or iris folding templates, and there'll be oodles of them. But once you learn the basics, you can create your own. It's simple, but if you don't want to go to the work, you just, hello, Pinterest. But I did this a couple of years ago. I think I taught a class on this, and I had found these colored templates on Pinterest, and it just made it a whole lot easier than trying to tell somebody, okay, for number one, write down that you need this color. And so this just made it. Like, I think one of my students and team members called it iris folding for dummies, but okay. So then we go back to our blue. Now see, our blue one is going to go all the way across there. So I'm going to put a little blue here. Glue it to the top of that one. And it's going to go all the way over there. I kind of like having the blue too as you're starting your first layers because it's going to glue down right at the edge of your template. So you follow your line, and that one goes all the way across. Now you're going to have some longer sheets or longer strips, some shorter strips. If you have a tiny little strip, just make sure you hold on to it because it could be used later on in the design as you get into some of these real tiny ones. Okay, so now we move to our next pink. See, originally this was very intimidating to me, but I love doing techniques, and I was determined to learn it, and now I just love it. Especially during the holidays. You know, anything that's unique or shiny or that sort of thing is always fun to do on holiday cards. It's tacked in place. lime color. I will fast forward the video through here. Now, as you get toward the center of the eye, you may have some colors that are done. Usually only about one, depending on what the design is. So just follow the colors that are there and finish. Almost there. We've got 2 greens. I think so. Let's go with the lime here. It does help when these overlap to hold the other ones in place too. So. Looks like we have one blue left here. One blue, one lime, one green. I think our pinks are done. To our blue. Stay in order toward the end. And sometimes it can be a little hard to tell where you're at because you have skipped a color that ran out. But that's why I do my separation of these. So all you have to do is look down and you'll see a color and you'll know that's the one you're on. Okay, we've got one lime and one green left. There's our lime. And that little green's gonna work there. That's the wrong one. Sorry, it's a good thing I had to mark. This one goes right there. Now when you get to the eye or the center, you could do anything there. You can cover it with a solid color, cover it with another one of these. Sometimes I like to keep going, but I think what I want to do on this one is I really like this design, so I'm going to use that as my center eye. When you flip it over, you could put an embellishment there, you could do anything. And see where I said it's really kind of thick? Oh, some of these you can trim off if you need to, but what I do, okay, now the other good thing about the Poor Man laminate is it'll peel right up. And your packing tape isn't gonna tear anything. This one I kind of glued over, so I'll probably just, oh no, it came right out. So then what I do, see I have a couple little spots that it's gone over the edge. Just trim them. And then, there you go. Isn't that neat looking? I mean, you could almost put a little Brad, or you could do anything right in the middle. Just adds character to it, but it's really neat. It's kind of like a cave. So what I do on the back to finish it off, it's not necessary, but I do it for a couple reasons. Is it's easier for me to mount it to something else. Is I take my Poor Man tape. Got a piece hanging over the edge. Okay, so I take a piece of my Poor Man tape and I just kind of cover the back of my image. I'm going to do this on my sheet so that I can trim off the tape. I'm going to add one more. And it kind of just holds everything in place. And it also gives you a surface, a little flatter surface to use your adhesives and dimensionals and things like that. And then just trim off my tape. And then what I did find, when you go to mount it, if you're using a card or a frame or whatever, like I did on this one, see how I have a gold frame on there? And then of course it is popped up with dimensionals, but I only had to use dimensionals on the outer edges because you've already got, I don't know if that shows, a little bit of thickness there. Like I said, it's all going to depend on what paper or what ribbon you use. That will determine how thick the project is. So what I did when I did this one with the frame, let me zoom back out of here a little, is I had my frame and I just cut out the center of it. That way, when I mount it, it'll fit a little flusher because the padded or thick part is going through the frame. So basically, that's it. You have your image and you can do whatever you'd like with your cards. I'm really liking this one, thinking I'm going to do a woodland background or something with it. So you have this. Be sure to go on my blog and you'll see the templates here which you can download. I also created a step-by-step PDF tutorial which you can print. While you're on my site, you know I love to do techniques. So you'll also find where I have these technique rings. I have this technique ring right here has over 50 techniques in it. And I put them together in 4¼ by 5½ with pictures and step-by-step instructions. This will be added to soon. I have an entire binder with easily 100 techniques and tutorials that I've collected over the years. And my team members, when you join my team, you get one of these from me. If I do a class, you get a card to add to it. Because I had spent so much time on the internet looking up tutorials, it was just easier to put them in one spot, and I didn't realize there was a calling for other people that didn't want to spend hours on Pinterest and YouTube looking up tutorials. So check it out on my website. Don't forget, next week, October 23rd, is going to be a 24-hour sale. I'm not sure if this video is going to go on to that, or it will definitely be on my blog hop on October 27th. You're going to definitely want to do the Team Stamp It blog hop, enter to win a prize just by leaving a comment. There's some amazing crafters that put up some great projects. You won't want to miss it. If you're ordering with me this month, the hostess code for this month is right here. And you received with a $50 order, you will receive tutorials from me by email. $100 order, you will get more tutorials with all the instructions and pictures and step-by-step that you need to do. Well, I hope you liked it today. We had fun with our iris folding. I hope you try it. I think you'll be addicted once you try it. It's a lot of fun. It adds a lot of unique quality to your projects and cards, and just have fun with it. You have some old DSP, want to use it up? This works great. You can just make some really pretty projects. So we hope you have a happy stamping day. Bye.